So here we go. I first became aware of my mom's anti-Blackness when I started kindergarten, and it mostly centered around avoiding interactions with Black people and not allowing me to be exposed to anything that she considered Black culture. So if we were walking and she saw a Black person, she would pull me closer to her. If we were in the car in a parking lot and saw a Black person in the parking lot, she would make a point to lock the doors, and I wasn't allowed to listen to rap or Michael Jackson or Tina Turner. And she was hypocritical about that.
Not Michael Jackson or Tina Turner. Wow, that's not
Because
good.
I wasn't allowed to listen to Cyndi Lauper or Madonna either. She would call it trash music and say that it was going to be a bad influence. But if it was a white artist, it was not racialized. It was only when it was Black artists that it was racialized. And another thing that I think is kind of typical is, as a musician, there were a lot of Black artists whom she respected and enjoyed, but she would always say that one Black artist is the exception, the rest are bad influences.
Wow.
Wow, that's deep right there.
And I went to school, if I came home and said I made a friend, her first question would be white or Black. And that drove me nuts because in
Wow.
preschool, I dealt with a lot of bullying and discrimination because of being Asian. So
You got
That's
something to say to that? That's wild. That's wild beyond wild right
yeah.
there.
That is wild. That's not a question I've ever heard my parents ask when I came home and said I had a friend. So that's different. Yeah.
Yes, that's something to think about right there.
so it didn't make sense to me that she wanted me to turn around and do that very same thing to my Black classmates, whom she knew nothing about on the basis of their skin color. And when I wouldn't stay away from my Black friends, she would resort to making up justifications as to why it was harmful for me. She would say they're going to hurt me and they're going to be a bad influence because they fight and they swear and they're not good students. And of course, none of that was true. And
Hmm.
in my household, it was not physically or emotionally safe to voice your opinions, but about that I would, because it literally angered me. And then she would resort to physical violence. And that sealed the deal in my mind that prejudice is purely irrational because none of her claims had any basis in reality.